I was wondering, on a slightly unrelated topic, is the motion design and VFX industry dying? Is there still a need for editors with motion design specializations? I don't think the industry is going anywhere. I mean, in big motion pictures, obviously, there's still a ton of visual effects and all kinds of things, animations of different kinds. Obviously, there's a lot of animated movies still. That's a huge thing. So, I mean, what this person might be referring to is like at a lower sort of scale, so like not big budget Hollywood productions and things like that, like just for everyday people, for more continuous sort of work, I guess you could say. Is there a need for visual effects and motion design? I would say, I mean, I wouldn't say that's indicative of it dying. It's just that there's only so much work for that kind of thing that people actually need. And once you have some film burn transitions and other kind of transitions like that, I mean, that's me personally, a lot of what I use is motion design and visual effects for. Like, there's so many stock ones that work so well. And I mean, if you can customize and build it yourself, that's a great skill to have, so you can make your own custom stuff. But I do think what they're kind of getting at is, I don't think that there's always going to be a lot of need for specializations. I think there's a good chance that you're gonna see like people who can do motion graphics as well as just be good editors for just general purpose content creation. Like, I would say at a certain level, the less you can specialize and the more well-rounded you can be a shooter, editor, kind of everything. And if you're strictly going with editing and then even more specifically motion design and visual effects, like, you are going to have to learn to do other kinds of computer video work, we'll call it, as the broad umbrella term, than just motion graphics. I think if you're not in Hollywood or something like that. When you're tracking your sales, how do you determine what the cost of goods sold is for videos? Obviously, it's mostly in labor and some equipment, but what do you use to calculate that? They might be asking an actual accounting question, but more than likely they're trying to find a roundabout way to answer the question, how do you charge money for video? Which is one of those things that is a perennial sort of question. This might be the hot take here, but when you're first starting out, I do think it's sometimes a good idea and I'd go as far as to say usually a good idea, to track your hours and try to come up with a hour per dollars made per hour ratio, because then at least you can sort of justify and start to see in your mind, like, okay, I'm roughly getting paid this. I could be going and working at my old job, which was, say, paying me, for example, like $18 an hour or something. So if I'm making $20 an hour doing something I really enjoy, and I did it on my own terms, then now I can kind of justify that. I think when you're just starting out, there's no reason not to do that. If people are willing to pay you, just do it that way. That's honestly probably the easiest way to give this answer. Like, if you're at a point where you would be stoked to make $200 or $500, or like you can't even imagine getting $1,000 to get paid for a video, that's usually a good indicator of what the top you should charge for a video, or a photography, whatever sort of creative thing you're doing. Like, whatever would just be incredible for you to receive for this, that's usually a good marker for where you should charge, honestly. Does anyone know an affordable wedding film editor that's decent? I love this. I love how this is the first one. That's exactly what I was thinking of saying. It's one of those things, affordable wedding editor that's decent. It's like, man, the age-old dilemma. And it's funny how these are people who have like joined this group, clearly with the idea of like they want to better themselves, but they don't want to do the editing. This is such a common thing. I see a lot of people who kind of take that approach because, editing can be a lot of work, and sometimes you like being the social person who's there, having fun with the camera. You get to play with the cool equipment, you get to do the lighting or whatever it is, and everybody's got their own thing. No shade on people who don't like the process of editing. It's definitely not always the best part. It can be kind of grueling sometimes, for sure. But if you're getting to the point where you want somebody else to be an editor, you have to make some decisions. Like, this is what every business does. And if you own a small business and you're ready, you're at the point where you want to outsource some work and you don't necessarily, and you're willing to and able to pay other people to do it, you have to make a decision. Like, do I want to wait on somebody who's very good at what they do and pay them a little bit more to try to keep them and incentivize them in other ways? Or, is this a task or a job where I don't need somebody who's really that great and I can kind of, go through the few applications or people that come in and, just get by? I would argue that if you're in the business of creating videos, no matter if they're wedding videos or whatever they are, like, you have to make the decision, are you going to be good or are you going to be great? I don't usually like going in black and white, and I'm always going to say there's going to be nuance and everything, but generally speaking, like, you have to make that decision for yourself. And, you could kind of play devil's advocate and say, okay, he's probably not referring to like somebody who's garbage, somebody that's decent, like somebody that just knows the fundamentals, can just do basic color grading. Like, more than likely that's probably what they're asking. This does make it funny, obviously, because this comment, because what they're probably implying is like they want somebody who's really good and affordable. But at the end of the day, like, that's the beauty of just the market. Like, the market will set the values different people have will set themselves. Anybody who's ever posted this, and I've seen this post different times, not always for wedding editors, but just looking for editors that are affordable but also know how to deliver quality. It's like, well, all the ones who know how to deliver quality know that they're worth a lot of money because they can deliver quality. Because if it was easy to deliver quality, everybody would be doing it and they would just be doing it themselves, So it's like, here's something I could pitch to them. I haven't really gone through the comments, but what I would say myself is, for one, try to make that decision for yourself. For two, come up, if you really want to put the work in and you really are passionate about bringing on an editor because it's something where you genuinely feel like it would help you scale your business and grow your business. Like, if it frees up more of your time to go find work and you're confident you can do that, get an editor. And if you do that, find one that's decent and throw out affordable. Like, I make a very good product. Like, if you are going to pay for me, Caleb Cornelou, they live in Manchester, so I don't know how to pronounce that. But if you want to provide decent or just really good wedding films, and you think that your work is a par above the rest, then you should be charging your clients accordingly. Look, I work with a guy who he's really good at making wedding videos, and this is going to be something that you're going to show to all your friends, and they're going to be like, oh my God, how my wedding video didn't look anything like that. How did you find this person? What is this person? You're going to get referrals that way, and they're going to be a lot more willing to pay that price. Yeah, it's $3,000. Yeah, it's $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for what I do, but what I do is really good. And it's going to be not just something you want to post on social media and Facebook, but it's going to be something you want to share with your friends and, maybe make them a little bit jealous. You're going to want to send to families, and you're, more importantly than any of that, if it's a wedding film specifically, it's something you're going to genuinely want to watch over and over again. If you're that good, it's going to be something that you want to watch to remember that special day, and it's going to either bring you to tears, or it's going to move you, it's going to impact you. It's just going to be like a true statement of what that day was like for you and how it felt to you. If you're really good at that. So, but to be honest, not a lot of wedding videographers get to that point, I think, where their product is that good. So if that is, the case for you, wherever you're at in your process, in your journey, maybe just go with affordable then. Just find one that's not so decent. But here's the other thing: collaborative editing is so easy now with tools like DaVinci. That's my bias. I love DaVinci Resolve, but even if you're not using that, you can use things like Frame.io and other tools to do collaborative editing. You just have an editor do the basics for you. You have them, sort the B-roll or trim out things. Kind of just do the general like editing assistant work, you could even call it, and then you go in and you get to just do the final stuff, the stuff that is up to your quality, piecing together the story or editing the sound. You can pay them a lower amount of money because they're not doing what I would call the hard work of editing. They're just kind of doing the grunt work, like sorting the B-roll, maybe color correcting, that kind of thing. Then you get to go in and do the color grading. You get to do the sound design. You get to do the storytelling. You get to do the difficult part, and you're really putting your brand on it. And then gradually this editor learns from you and they can start to take over some of those things. That's the way it's done in the film industry. And that's a great thing to do for this. I've done that myself. I've just had friends kind of help with the general parts of editing, like sorting footage, scrubbing it. And, you know, I'm not asking them to do anything, you know, what I would call, again, the difficult part of editing, which is really decision making on how it should be paced, how it should feel. But it's enough to get the grunt work out of the way so that I can go in and do the hard work, and I don't have to pay them. I don't have to try to justify paying them a lot of money because they're kind of just doing some basic stuff. So, you know, do some combination of those two things and you'll be in good shape. What's your favorite tried and true audio wind removal tool? Most horrible windy day, blowing stuff over the ceremony, blah, blah, blah. Highlight video, private vow ceremony. I'd rather not spend on a program. You know, as good as AI is, as good as these sound removal tools have gotten, as awesome as of a world as we live in now because of just, how great some of these AI things have, there's still, unfortunately, nothing better than just getting good audio in the first place and doing everything you can to mitigate wind noise with like windscreens, dead cats, all of that on your microphones and getting it as close to your subject as possible. You know, just even angling their shoulders so the wind isn't hitting the microphone directly. Anything you can do in pre-production is always going to be 1,000 times better than anything you're ever going to be able to do in post-production. And to be honest, the noise removal tools in DaVinci, at least, that's what I use, just the one they have built into DaVinci Resolve. Really, really good. Does a great job of isolating the speaker, but it's always going to sound just a little bit digital, a little bit, you know, fake and altered. And you can luckily scale how much you want it to take place. So usually if it's really bad, I'll just bring it down to 20 so that it mitigates a little bit, but it doesn't distort the voice too heavily. If anything, you know, here's the sort of silver lining is how I'd frame this. Leave the noise in, you know, because if anything, it looks like this is for a wedding video. So if anything, like the wind is part of that memory, right? And it's embedded into the memory of that day for them. So to try to edit out the wind is kind of in a little bit of a way like kind of just editing out a part of their history. That might be something where it's like, oh my God, the microphone was so windy, that's just how windy it was. Like it's something they could listen to and watch and laugh, and I think, you know, in a way sort of relive it, because it sounds like this wasn't a terrible experience. It was just, you know, it was just blustery. It's windy. Windy weddings are sometimes funny to just watch. And if they post these videos of things just blowing away, you know, as long as it's not a huge disaster. But even I've seen videos of where the cake just topples over and the couple's just watching it back years later, just laughing, brought to tears, laughing. It's like, those are honestly the things that we couldn't help but dream of sometimes for our wedding. Like memories like that, leave it in. You know, just leave the sound of the wind in. Don't worry about it. I think especially for a wedding, this is a creative edit. This sounds like they do have reasonable expectations of audio. So like, you know, just leave it. I think it makes a good memory. Should I get an anamorphic lens for a documentary? I'm thinking about it, but not sure if I should stick to my regular lenses. I have a 7200, FX30, A7 IV, 85 portrait, and a wide Sony Ari. I don't know what a Sony Ari is. You know, sometimes I feel like people just sort of ask questions just for the sake of asking them a little bit. That's my assumption here. Because if you really took a second to think about the answer to this question, I would think the answer would be pretty obvious, which is it depends. I know hopefully everyone watching this already saw that or already said it out loud in their head before I said it. It depends on what you want to do. That's always the answer. But for something like this, especially an anamorphic lens for documentary, you know, honestly, it depends on your own style, like how you want to make it. To be honest, it would be kind of cool to just see a documentary shot completely in anamorphic, because that's just not typically done. The other thing about anamorphic lenses, I mean, honestly, I have so many questions that I'd have to ask before being able to give a good answer. Like, are you talking about using it for shooting outside, inside, portraits, like interviews, B-roll, on a helicopter? Like, are you taking a flight somewhere? Like, what are the shots you want to use it for? Are you talking about using only an anamorphic lens, like as a stylistic choice, or like using it in addition to these? Are you asking, should I use it for the interviews and use these for everything else, or vice versa? It's just kind of like asking, you know, should I bring a 4-foot tent or a 6-foot tent camping? It's like, well, you don't really have to bring either, for one. Where are you going camping? How many people are in your tent? What are the other features of the tent? There's a lot of other things that I think are more important to decide than what between those two. There's so many other things to know. Ultimately, what I think they're getting at is like, hey, anamorphic lens, I've seen this kind of thing floating around. There's a lot of affordable ones now out on the market. I like documentaries, or I'm planning on making one. Is this something I should buy? It sounds like they're implying they want to buy it too. And I'm about to make a documentary. So honestly, what I would say is, like exactly what this guy said, anamorphic lenses are cool. I've never bought one myself. I would love to have one. That's definitely something on my list. It's not a priority for me, but something that I would love to have for creative purposes, or use for something. And, you know, I would say for an interview, like, really try to think of it in terms of like, okay, what does it do visually? There's a lot of great videos out there on like the purpose behind anamorphic lenses, why to use them, or why they were invented. That's what you should know before anything else. Why were anamorphic lenses created? And what does the word anamorphic mean? Like, ask the fundamental questions first, and that'll help you understand, like, okay, now that I know the guy, John Anamorphic, who invented this, why he created it. Okay, he created it for this reason. And that's actually exactly why I'm making this documentary, for that exact same reason. So maybe this would be a great creative choice to lend itself to this. You know, fact check me on some of that stuff. But yeah, it really just does depend on if the actual medium, if because what we're doing is creative work, everything you do should have some kind of creative consideration, right? And especially when it comes to something that's going to push your look as much as an anamorphic lens, you really have to decide, okay, what shots should I use this for? And, you know, am I going to use it for other stuff in the future? Like, there's so many things to ask. Thank you guys for watching. If I said anything that offended you or you disagreed with, I'd love to actually talk to you about it. Just drop a comment. Would love to hear your thoughts. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.